Here's the singular tool that's built most of our agency, and that for the better part of a year, we built all of our automations. Now, this video is going to be split into about 3 different components. Firstly, I'm going to talk about why most AI tools are actually completely useless. Second, I'm going to go over this tool and, more importantly, the skill set that you need to develop to actually be able to build an AI agency. And lastly, I'm going to show you how to put all of this stuff together so that you have an idea of what's possible, but also what businesses are paying for today. Now, if you're new, I run Prompt Advisors with my business partner, Mark. And over the last 2.5 years, we've done hundreds of projects in the AI space. I use the channel to create videos that my younger self would have liked to have seen 2 to 3 years ago so that you can get the lessons without scars. Number one, and then that was not a typo, most AI tools are completely useless. Here's what I mean. You ever try to use ChatGPT to write an email and get this idea in your mind? So you tell it to write this email and then it comes out as a bit too casual. So you know what? Make it a bit more professional. Now it's gone all the way on the deep end and it's made it way too professional. So then you tell it to, you try to bring it back, right? And now on this third version, it's somehow forgotten the context or the point of the email. So you have this sort of the back and forth between going way too far on one side or way too far on the other. And then 10 minutes in, you realize, well, if I had just spent 2 minutes and just wrote it manually, I could have saved myself all this headache. ChatGPT is a great tool. I use it every day. This analogy, this example, is how it feels to use most of the tools. The worst part is though, you don't even get the email at the end of the day. That's how it feels. And most of them, and you know those I'm talking about, the ones that you see demos of every day on YouTube, where it says they're gonna revolutionize the world. A lot of them will get you 40, 50% of the way there, and they're great for demos. They're great to showcase what could be. And then you actually try to use them in production. And it's been my experience that most of these apps, most of these things that can be auto-built aren't actually deployable in the real world. They can be used the way we use them, which is as a prototype or something that I show to my developers to be like, hey, look, can we build something like this? Think of it like a really advanced sketch. But I have yet to find a tool that actually makes production-ready apps that are good, and that is Skittle. Now you might be wondering, why do I bring this up? This video is about the one tool that you should use. The reason I bring this up, and I get people in my community asking me every day, should I use this for that? Should I use that for this? Oh, I just saw this brand new tool. What do you think of it? Etc, etc. And I understand why these questions are coming up. And here's what pays me about it, is they will use some of the brand new tools that they saw online. And in the moment, it can feel the progress. It can feel like I'm learning this brand new tool. But then you go from tool to tool to tool to tool, and you never really finish anything with any of these tools because you realize what they're lacking. And the moment that sucks is 3 months after you started using a brand new tool or you've been exploring all these tools, you realize you haven't actually built, and that look on your face, and that's just not a situation that you want. Don't fall into that trap. All right. Enough negativity, let's get on to something more productive. Now that we've spoken about what not to do, the question arises, or the question you may have is, well, what should I use that? And it's actually pretty simple. It's called Make.com. I'm sure you heard about it. I've made plenty of videos about it. And the reason why I think it's so powerful is because it's a canvas more than anything else. People seem to focus on these one-off tools that are brand new, that I don't necessarily love, multitude of different reasons. But the one I'm going to talk about today is, even within Make.com, there is one skill that separated me from everybody else. And that one skill was my ability to get ChatGPT answered the way I want it to answer. Here's what I mean. So with ChatGPT, it essentially becomes like you're human in the loop, but without the human part. So you tell ChatGPT, hey, look, based on these specific rules, I want you to output X thing. It becomes really useful. Let's say you want to build an automation that takes a look at your voicemails and then determines, based on the different voicemails, which one you should call back first. So somebody who's an existing client who just wants an update, probably not super important or super urgent. A brand new lead who needs something done immediately, that is probably the first on the list. Well, you can tell ChatGPT, you can prompt it in such a manner where it will output those calls in the ranked list as you prompted it to do so. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. I want to talk about the different types of automations. And by the way, there's another tool called N8N. It essentially does the same thing, but I'm more familiar with Make.com, which is why I use it. So let's talk about first what automation is. Automation really is just the ability for you to take these UE8 actions and sequence them in a way based on specific rules. So a really simple tier 1 automation, or what I call an internal automation, will be something that lives within the same app. Think when email comes in, put it in the inbox folder. That's an automation that is super useful. Maybe you use Salesforce as a CRM and you want to put every single voicemail should go in the specific bucket during these times. Or let's say you use RingCentral as your calling system and you have different trees based on when somebody's calling and what number they call. Those are technically also automations. So now a lot of people already use internal automation. We're seeing they're really powerful. What most people pay us to do is to create external automations. External automations is where Make.com, Zapier, if you're familiar with that, N8N, they allow you to connect different separate softwares together so that you can make your automation even more powerful. I'll use the same example earlier. Let's say you had voicemails come in and you want to triage them based on importance. Well, in order to do that, you first have to use, let's say using RingCentral, that's where all the calls come in. Cool. You then have to use some sort of software that can look at a call recording and output a type of call or output the rank. Well, or the easy software that could do that would be ChatGPT or OpenAI. Okay, well, I know I need to connect my RingCentral to OpenAI so that OpenAI can read transcripts. Cool. Then let's say I want to put the result of these calls in Salesforce. That's what my team uses. All right. From somehow in OpenAI, I need to go into Salesforce. Okay, so I've got this sort of blueprint in my mind of what needs to happen. And this thinking, by the way, is what people pay us for, is to identify how do you bridge the gaps between these different softwares, and Make.com is the canvas by which we build these bridges. So to recap, automations is just the act of stitching together different operations in system. There are two main types of automations. You have internal automations, which live with the singular software, and then you have external automations, where you connect multiple softwares together to achieve a specific goal. So let's talk quickly. So now that we understand generally how this works, practically what do I do? Well, any automation, external or internal, starts with a trick. And ideally, you'd actually want to reverse engineer what the trigger is based on what the outcome is. I'll talk to business owners all the time, and their goal is, I want X to happen and Y. A super simple example is, I want a email response to be created by AI before I even have to take a look at it. Okay, that's the objective. Well, let's try to think backwards as to where does that start? Well, if the objective is to create a reply, for me to have a reply, I need to have an email. Okay, so the starting point would be when I get an email. That's the starting point. Cool. I now have my start, I have my finish, or I have my objective. I now need to just find the steps in the middle to be able to get to the finish line. And in that case, obviously, you would have some sort of AI component or AI module that you would prompt to respond based on specific variables or based on what the email said to begin with. So where can you take this? I'm going to show you a super simple example of an automation that I just whipped up for this video that hopefully will drive the point home. Let's see how software company. And software companies do have a lot of documentation that how to use your products. Well, let's say they get a lot of emails, a lot of tickets that are open because people don't know how to use the system. In that case, you could either have a member of staff take a look at every single email and then look through the documentation and then respond, or a better spend of time would be we now have AI tools or AI models that are smart enough to be able to look through a lot of documentation and see if it can find the answer and then send it to the user directly if it does. So here that would look, as you can see here, this is Make.com. And there's a lot of errors here because this isn't set up. This is truly for illustrative purposes only. But on the left-hand side, this is my chart. This is how the entire automation starts. Then I have a sort of separation. The router, and this is not meant to be a tutorial. This is just meant to get the ideas flow. But I've got a router. A router essentially means based on what Zendesk said, this is Zendesk, which is a ticketing system. But you can have different types of tickets. So if it's anything but technical challenge, then I just want to send directly to an email so that a member of my staff can deal with, right? Remember, the objective is to alleviate the workload when people are asking technical questions. Then I have an AI module here. What this is doing is I can just take the information from the email and I'm cleaning up the question. This just means that I want the robot to take a look at what the email said, and people can have these super long rants about what the problem is. The point of this module would be to just update that question into something that could be easily searchable. After that, this is really where the magic is. We have another AI model, this is called Perplexity. Essentially, this is just ChatGPT, but made to search online. So in this scenario, you tell it to search my documentation, search online, search YouTube videos for content related to this specific problem to see if it can find the answer. I've now received information from the documentation it has researched, and I have a final ChatGPT step. And the point of this step is to essentially output whether or not this answer responds to the question that the user asked in the beginning. And lastly, I've got a third or a second router. And this router essentially has two directions, which is if the answer was found, send an email saying, here's your answer, X, Y, or Z user. If there was no answer, then it actually goes to a member of my staff because I know that this answer wasn't something that it could have easily have searched up. Now, there's so much that you could improve here. But the point that I'm trying to illustrate is that this is really what we get paid to do. It's not about the technical feasibility of being able to put all these together because this is pretty simple. There's going to be a template in the description below to download this if you want. It's really more about the creativity and understanding how these systems work so that you can come up with what these processes would look like. And by the way, you'll notice that 60 or 70% of this module is that AI component. That's really where the magic is. The rest is this sending information different places. But the real thing people are paying you for is really these 3 steps right here. So if you can do this right, businesses are paying for these solutions today because this is time consuming. Doing this manually for every single ticket is insanely time consuming. And here's why I refer to the main skill behind our AI agency has been AI prompting. That's literally all it is. It's how good are you at getting ChatGPT to consistently and reliably output the information that you need to help. Because if you look back in that automation, most of the skill lies in how good are you at prompting those 3 different nodes so that you get the exact output that you are expecting every single time. There's nothing super advanced in the way I prompted it. I really just used CARES, which is our prompting formula, C for context, which is where is it, A is for action, as in what do you want it to do, R is for rules, what are the guardrails that it has to answer between, E is for execution, what's the format that it should output it in, and S is for safety. What happens if somebody tries to take me out of my guard? If you want to get better prompting, just download the guide that's in the description. And if you are Charlotte Lindsay clients, I just made a video about the one framework that I use. If you are Charlotte Lindsay clients, I just made a video about the one framework that I use to get over 75 different clients, and I'll be right here. Thanks for watching.